Car, Peter Christensen here, coming to you from the CEO's desk. Did you know that within the REPC, yep, that REPC, the one you use every day, the current REPC, there's a provision that allows the seller to basically make part of the earnest money go hard before or after the due diligence deadline. Yep, it's in there. This is a concept you should get familiar with as we get ready to unveil the new version of the REPC soon. This concept will be a little more prominent in there. Right now it's kind of buried. It's in 8.3 B1. So it's buried in there. It says that buyer may, after the due diligence deadline referenced in 24B, if applicable, cancel the REPC by providing written notice to seller no later than the finance and appraisal deadline referenced in 24C. Whereupon, and then there's a blank there. And then you could put a dollar amount. Blank of buyer's earnest money or deposit shall be released to seller without the requirement for further written authorization from the buyer. And the remainder of buyer's earnest money will be returned to the buyer. So this is really important. This is a great tool. Very underutilized. I think this was put in the last iteration of the REPC 8 years ago-ish. And when is it used? How is it used? What's it good for? Well, let's say you have a buyer who says go under contract on July 1st, and your settlement deadline is August 10th. And the buyer says, hey, I would like the finance and appraisal deadline to be August 1st. Well, as a seller, you're going to have your home off the market for an entire month. And you know before that deadline. And you know that buyer and buyer sole discretion can cancel that contract and they'd get all their earnest money back. So you basically have your home off the market for an entire month with really no penalty to the buyer for backing out. Well, that's sometimes not the situation you want to be in. And you may realize that and say, push back. Buyer, I'd like your finance and appraisal deadline to be, July 15th. I'll give you 15 days. And buyer says, no way, I can't. I really need that time to get my financing in order, get appraisals, get all the requirements done. And so you're in a tricky spot. But this provision allows you to say, okay, buyer, I'll let you have that long, but this much of your earnest money is going to come to me if you cancel after the due diligence deadline, but before the finance and appraisal deadline. So there's a window. And you're canceling based off of the finance condition. So $10,000 earnest money, maybe as a seller you say, I'd like $5,000 of that to come to me if you cancel after due diligence and before the finance and appraisal deadline. It's a protection, right? It puts some skin in the game for the buyer where they say, hey, give me 10 days for due diligence. And then after that, I'm on the hook for $5,000. You're going to get that $5,000, seller, if I cancel for finance reasons. And I'll only get half my earnest money deposit back. It doesn't have to be half. You can put whatever amount you want in there. But that's mechanically how it works. And like I said, very underutilized. I'm a little surprised. When we put that in, I thought it solved a lot of the complaints we were hearing about sellers having their home off the market and buyers using that sole discretion language to cancel the contract 3 weeks into it, and sellers being frustrated about it. So that provision was put in there to compensate for that. And like I said, you're likely to see that on the cover page, this concept, and the language is a little different as it currently sits. So we'll see where it ends up as it goes through the process of approval, see if that language gets changed at all. but I would not suspect that language will change. I think we're going to get it how it's written now. And so this concept will be in there, will be one you'll have to be familiar with, because you're going to have to deal with it one way or another with every contract you write. And it's going to be right there in the buyer and seller's face, which is awesome. So understand how that works mechanically, where it is good for a buyer or seller, and how it can benefit and work for different situations. Remember, this is not legal advice. This is legal information only. If you need specific legal advice, please contact your attorney. Thanks for tuning in.